My name's Russ Maddin. I live in Traverse City, Michigan. Been a guide in Michigan for 25 years roughly now. Learned from a lot of great anglers out there, great streamer fishermen in particular. Kelly, worked for Kelly. My best friend's Alex. I got a lot of friends in this business and that do what I like to do. But I've definitely been a guide for 20 years and enjoy every second of it. How did I get started fly fishing? Well, my folks had some business to attend to, so they took off for a couple weeks out of town, and the guy who stayed with me was a young couple. He was tying flies, and I got curious on it and started picking up some stuff. And actually, the money that my mom left my sister and I, for the month or whatever they were gone, he went out and bought a little fly tying kit and kind of took me under his wing, tied some flies. And, forever after that, I started going to the Orvis store in town and got some random things. And eventually I started working there when I was 13 and worked there all through high school. It was a great experience. And I remember not so long after, my mom got a rod and reel and strung it up, and well, backing was only $12, but fly line was 30. So she rigged up the backing on there and turned me loose, and I had backing on my rig for about 3 years before I even got a fly line. Fortunate enough to live near a guy who was up in Alaska for the summer and came back and said, "What the heck are you doing? Give you one of my old 6-weights," and he put it on there. It was like going from a Pinto to a Maserati. It was like the greatest thing ever. I realized fly line then and finally learned how to cast, and really helped when I started being able to get a discount. Things became affordable at the Orvis store and all that, and from there just moved up north and got my guide license when I was 18, when it was legal, and worked at Johnson's Pier Marquette Outfitters for the first Pier Marquette Lodge for the first time, and ran my first trip in '94 and been guiding ever since. That's a good one. How did I learn about the streamer gig first? Well, Kelly was huge and instrumental in that for me. After Johnson's, I went up north and just to move because I wanted to change. Baldwin isn't a great big town by any stretch of the imagination, so I just wanted a little bit more out of life and moved up to Traverse City. Really didn't know anybody, and Kelly had a shop there, and I'd obviously been fishing my whole life and kind of wanted to continue in a different town, and kind of met up with Gallup and kind of took me under his wing and showed me a lot. Learned a lot from him and Bob Linsman, and that's how we all kind of start. There's always a mentor involved somewhere along the line. Doesn't matter who, whatever your top angler in the world had someone showing them. And I really accelerated in that streamer thing from Kelly and Bob. Both of them were super good to me, and really enjoyed working for Kelly when he was in Michigan. Really did. Learned a ton. Fished hard. Kelly fished hard. I mean, he's one of those guys that you can look at and go, yeah, that guy fished. Really, really fished. Like, for real fished. No one could ever take that away from him. No matter what anybody says, I know because I've seen him. And I fished too, and that's why we got along. I mean, Kelly and I were like that for years, for 8 years, 9 years. That's basically how I got my foot in the door in streamer fishing and trout in general. Really put a focus from steelhead to trout, and that's really when that shift for me was made. Probably around 98, I'm guessing, 99. That's when I really started taking that from steelhead to trout and just mainly focusing on trout. Well, the thing that haunts you about the streamer fishing, and it all comes down to that take. Comes down to being ready. It's just like having that big whitetail walk underneath that tree stand, or standing on home plate and getting ready to biff that sucker into outer space. That's what it's about. It's about keeping your act together the entire time, from start to finish, 100%, until that fish shows, and then making that count. That's why you fish, really. That's why you fish. It's for that moment when that fish comes up that side of that boat and opens up that mouth and boom, that's what keeps you going, and that's what haunts you every day. You just try to get the next size, the bigger one, somewhere else, a new river, a new time, and it's all about that take when you're fishing that streamer. That's it. Doesn't matter if it's a Chinook, a smallmouth bass, a steelhead, a brown trout over here in Cotter. It's just about that take. And if you don't like that take, you ain't gonna like this streamer bit, because this will make a man out of you. Number one tip for streamer fishermen: first off, listen to your guide. They usually know more than you. The next one is, don't fall apart. Don't look at your hands. There's no fish there. They've been there your whole life. So don't look at your hands. Look around your fly. The biggest thing to do is look around your fly. Know what's coming, and know your fly. A lot of these casts are second nature already. Casting should be second nature. Animating your fly, all those things should be second nature. You just can't think about stuff like that. You have to think of the end result. Set your hook to the open side of the boat if you can. Keep your rod low. But basically, the biggest thing is listen to your guide, because they know. And get your act together, meaning stalling and stopping your sinking line so it can get different depths of water. Try to come underneath the log, not on top of it. On the edge of a rock wall, not, well, basically you'll get the idea. All right, what's my favorite streamer? Basically, if you're going to a river anywhere in the world, doesn't matter if it's Montana, Michigan, Arkansas, coming with one action fly is a huge mistake. And what I mean by that is, if you're coming to Arkansas and you're just gonna run the triple D, you got a hair fly, or you're just gonna run the unholy diver, or you're just gonna run the sluggo, or you're just gonna run, don't just run anything. You need some lead sometimes. Sometimes you need a skull. Sometimes you need hair. Sometimes you need something with a keel, like Sedati stuff. There's a lot of, if you come to a place with one action fly, you're gonna set yourself up for failure. I like fishing flies that I have confidence in, so I run either a lightly weighted peanut within an articulated version, or a fully weighted peanut. And I just like those flies in general, but you know, it's also one that I've made. But everybody has their comfort zones and what they like to fish. But the biggest mistake streamer fishermen can make is go into a place with one action fly. You're never going to catch the amount of fish that you want if you go with one action. That being said, some places just cast big and you'll get big. Some places cast small and you'll actually catch fish. But the biggest mistake I think that guys make is going to a river with one action fly and thinking that's the answer. It could have rained 5 inches last night. It didn't, but it could have. So if you go to a place with one action, you're setting yourself up for failure, in my opinion. First fly I ever tied was a dry fly called an Adams, and been it on a river that I basically live right near right now, on the Boardman River. That was my first fly that I ever tied, and then kind of moved to woolly buggers and standard nymphs and you know, some of the basic stuff. But when you're 12, 13, you just tie what you can, and you tie what works, and you tie what those fish that they planted in your local river eat, you know, and that's kind of where you start, you know, or you tie what a bluegill will eat. Tie bluegill spiders, man, I tied a million of them. Still do, actually. That was one of my favorite fish of all the planet. Still a gill. So, first fly I ever tied was an Adams, and then I moved from there. All right, favorite material. Favorite material on a fly would be a feather. You can do so many things with it. You can make it a tail, you can wrap it, you palmer it, you can collar it. So I like feathers. I like to incorporate them into almost all my flies, even synthetic and natural. But I just think it adds so much depth to the fly by having a feather, even by collaring it, palmering it, various methods. But the feather would be my favorite choice. Plus it keeps your dry flies floating, even though it's a streamer thing. Gotta have feathers for a dry fly. What's my favorite tool for flies? Basically, is something that already exists. It's a platform. You take your platform, whether it be a woolly bugger or a deceiver or a clouser, and you take those flies that are such platform flies and you make it better for your own fishing. So you already have the tool in front of you. Then it comes down to what's in your head. How do you make it better for your fishing? How do you take that woolly bugger and make it better for your conditions, for your water, for your fishing in general? I mean, you have the pattern, you have the tool, make something good with it. Make something better, make something that lasts a lifetime, make something that is timeless in its fishing. Just like that woolly bugger, you can make it better. So really it comes down to fishing knowledge, amount of time on the water, and what you already have to work with. And that's, you know, a lot of my flies are like that. Circus Peanut's like that. Who's saying you can't put a feather off the back or put some new modern materials in there, put the chains on the front, make it bigger, larger, smaller. It's adapting. It's adapting a fly or a tool that you already have, and take a woolly bugger, take a clouser, take a deceiver. Those are tools. Those are my favorite tools. Take that, take those inventors, those creators, and do something better with it. That's what us fly tires want. That's all we want out of life, is to have our patterns be better. Make them better for you. We all struggle with something. I found out now that I actually struggle with deer hair after seeing Andreas Anderson's flies. I mean, I really suck at hair compared to some guys. He's really, really good. But yeah, I know we all have our little downfalls, and I would have to say, especially after seeing some of his work, that my deer hair sucks. All right, future of streamer fishing. There's obviously a lot more folks doing it now. Used to just be a handful of our knuckleheads out there doing it, and you know, we didn't look for anything. We didn't look for who's better or what's better. Now, with the increase in fly tying materials, products, a lot of these flies are actually going to more of the lure side of life. You know, adding prosthetics onto the end of flies, or you know, synthetic materials. Just so many resources available, and I could definitely see more lure imparting actions into our flies. Helmets that are painted up, spray paints. Really, the sky's the limit now, and it's up to these new guys to come around and come up with some new cool materials and ways to fish. But yeah, it's definitely heading into the lure side of things, and I really look forward to seeing what these guys and kids have coming up now, and you know, hope they give us old guys a little bit of love every once in a while. But you know, it's definitely heading into the lure side of things.